Portions of the following program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. Right?
You have been sold a lie.
Let me out! Let me out!
The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inured, so hopelessly dependent on the system that they will fight.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
I don't know why we leaving Malcolm's house. He been good to us. He feed us on Saturday, close us on Sunday, and then beat us on Monday.
He's saving my money.
That is the most ridiculous piece of philosophical bullshit I have ever heard.
And the game's over when the white ball drives the black ball completely off the table.
I want to say, can we all get along? Can we get along?
He had sex with a white girl, that's what. I said,
I want revenge.
So you must be dangerous.
I want you.
More white deaths than births in 1/3 of the United States. You know I'm going to say that again. More white death than birth in 1/3 of the United States. Studies now show that many white deaths are directly attributed to globalist economic policies. What this article from Britain Daily Mail does not tell us is that white births are already a minority in the United States and have been so for several years. More white people are dying than being born in 1/3 of the states, according to the new research. The death rate among Caucasian Americans outstripped the birth rate in 17 states in 2014, compared to just 4 in 2004, the University of New Hampshire found. While Latino, Black, and Asian population continue to grow, soaring death rates among white middle-aged Americans, combined with the fact that white families are having less children, means certain states are seeing falling Caucasian populations. White Americans are reportedly dying faster than to a silent epidemic of death from suicide, drugs, and alcohol poisoning. The trend, which affects both rural or desert areas such as Nevada and Arizona, to states with large metropolitan areas such as California, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania, has already begun to shake up America's demographics. The fact that this was going on in the states that contain such a substantial part of the United States population stunned even me, Kenneth Johnson, sociology professor at the university and co-author of the research, told the Wall Street Journal. We're probably going to see in several more states in the years to come. The research, based on data from the National Center for Health Statistics, focused on white birth and death from 1999 to 2014. It showed that birth rates among white women fell drastically during the recession. Between 2007 and 2009, as families, already strained financially to the breaking point, chose to have fewer children or none at all. Birth rates have slowly been recovering, but experts believe that those couples may never have as many children as they were predicted to before the recession. There were also fewer white women of childbearing age between 2000 and 2014 because of low birth rates during the 1970s. Meanwhile, white middle-aged Americans have been bucking the national trend of decreasing death rates as two economists blame increased competition with China for the rising number of deaths from suicides, drug, and alcohol poisoning. Meanwhile, death rates for blacks and Hispanic men and women in rural areas have fallen. Justin Pierce and Peter Schott believe they can trace back the uptick back to 2000, when President Bill Clinton decided to relax the rules on major imports. Until then, the potential remained for the United States lawmakers to reintroduce the 1930s Smoot-Hawley legislation at any time, the Washington Post reports. The law placed onerous tariffs on import goods from China and elsewhere to offer more protection to United States industries that would be affected by close competition from the country, such as plastic and textile manufacturers. The legislation has weakened over time, but lawmakers retain the ability to reimpose the sky-high tariffs, meaning that potential investors were taking a significant risk as Chinese companies had no assurance they could continue trading with the United States. Clinton changed that in 2000 when he wrote the lower tariff into law, something that Pierce and Shaw said had a devastating impact on the United States industry. American factories, which couldn't compete with China's cheap labor force, shut down in droves, while thousands upon thousands of middle-aged white Americans without college degrees were laid off. Unable to cope, many turned to drugs, alcohol, even took their own lives, according to the research. Pierce and Shaw estimate that increased Chinese imports were responsible for 1.3 overdose or alcohol-related deaths in 100,000 people, and 0.4 suicides in the same number, in counties where the economy was based on industries vulnerable to threat from China. The surge in death amidst whites, middle-aged Americans, were so significant that Dr. Ann Case and Dr. Angus Deaton, Princeton University, compared the silent epidemic to the AIDS epidemic in the United States. They said poisoning overtook lung cancer as a cause of death. In 2011, the middle-aged group, suicide appeared poised to do so. Case and Deaton were the first to highlight the worrying increase in mortality rates last year in a separate research. Behavior change. Prevention and better treatment has generally brought down mortality rates for those aged 45 to 54 since 1970. These reductions in morbidity have made lives longer and better, the researcher said, adding it is widely assumed these improvements will continue. However, Dr. Case and Dr. Dean revealed that presumptions does not extend to Caucasian Americans in midlife. They found a marked deterioration in the morbidity and mortality of middle-aged white non-Hispanics in the United States since 1998. Their research shows this pattern is exclusive to the United States and is not reflected in other rich nations, nor, they add, is it seen among African Americans or Hispanics within the United States. They estimate that they had the white mortality in the United States rate held at its 1998 value. 96,000 lives would have been saved between 1998 and 2013. And had it continued to fall as it had between 1978 and 1998, 488,500 deaths would have been avoided from 1999 to 2013. This figure is comparable to the number of deaths caused by the AIDS epidemic in the United States. While death rates related to drugs, alcohol, and suicide have risen for middle-aged white across the board, the largest surge are seen among those with the least education. For those with a high school degree or less, death caused by drugs and alcohol poisoning rose fourfold. Suicides increased by 81%, and death caused by liver disease and cirrhosis jumped 50%. All-cause mortality rose by 22% for this least educated group. While the sudden turnaround in the mortality is only partly understood, the researchers said an increase in availability of opiates, include heroin, in the late 1990s are a potential reason. The author wrote, the CDC estimates that for each prescription painkiller death in 2008, there were 10 treatment admissions for abuse, 32 emergency departments visited for misuse or abuse, 130 people were abusers or dependent, and 825 non-medical users. In this period of 1998 to 2013, the United States saw falling prices and rising qualities of heroin, as well as availability in areas where heroin had been previously largely unknown. And they said financial stress may have also played a key role. Although the epidemic of pain, suicide, and drug overdose preceded the financial crisis, ties to economic insecurity are possible, the author note. The study is published online in the preceding National Academies of Science. Agricultural Secretary Tom Vilsack said struggling rural economies said the Obama administration was aware of the crisis and was launching new programs aimed at tackling drug-related death. Hey, how's y'all doing? This is your whiteologist bringing my listeners the news, the report, storyline, the inside scoop, the dirt, the slant, the spin, sleight of hand, the reverse psychology, the history, the hidden agenda, my perspective to you globally, internationally, continentally, and locally, especially in America and around the world, for those who are participating in to listen to the content. And my subject for the day, well, go back almost 3 years ago, y'all, when I had put out the video, The Extinction of the White Race. And now we come back and they're reporting now it's more, a third of the United States of the white Caucasian race is dying off. And I wonder, you know, when we're talking about millions of people, and we're talking about spread out through the world, are they using this as a scare tactic for those people, according to this story, who are less educated and cannot perceive outside of the box they've been molded in? And when they say these trigger words, as I get into this video, is this what we're seeing? Is this what we're seeing? And I'm going to connect in this story as into, if according to this story, what would be the avenue for these people that this story is pertaining to? If they're looking for employment, where would they go? Where is there a job with some kind of, let's say, status, right, and privilege, and makes one feel that they are part of something, right, that can also be a double-edged sword, as in killing two birds with one stone. So I won't reveal that until we get there. But again, according to as this story started off, it started talking about how that that there was more white death than birth in 1/3 of the United States. Now, on that alone, on the title in itself, to say more white deaths, well, if you are the higher or the bigger population in the country, it's obvious that your number should be more than everybody else's. That's obvious. That's obviously given, right? So the fact that to make this alarming heading to more whites death in 1/3 is for those people who are less educated, who don't research, who don't read, who don't understand why these demographic numbers are changing. They're going to be alarmed, and in their ignorance, they're going to respond. And this is what we've been seeing lately, as a lot of the stuff that's been transpiring out here, that men that fit the description, white Caucasian men who fit this storyline, seem to be lashing out based on something internal in their mind that they perceive as a threat, as we that who consider ourselves to be what we say negritude, right? Those who understand the word negritude is just being love of self, of your people, of your nationality, right? So when we see these constant stories keep putting up or being seen, videotape of these heinous killings and being justified in their fear, is this systemic to this? Somebody's prodding them that's using the bigger population, because anytime when you have a dynamic between rich and poor, the poor population is going to outnumber the so-called middle and that rich. So there's a bigger population of poor people in this country than there are of the other two. And the middle is just barely got his nose above water. So what I'm saying is that this stoking this flame in this country in particular, with a dynamic based on the election we just had, or they just had, and this person who just won fits the dynamic of this story and who they're talking about. And the mantra he was using is bringing jobs back, and he pulled the heartstrings of the people who fit the lower echelon of the Caucasian race. When he spoke more about race, he was antagonizing and firing up that those nationalists are now showing their face. You'll see at the end of the clip, as always, I show you when these things are relevant and prevalent, that you had these people where they had the conversation on TV One, and the nationalist sat there and he said some things. Now, what we have to understand is, a lot of people are asking why is all this? This is what this is systemic to. There's a fear in white Caucasian men that, one, they can't support their families in the way that they want to, due to, again, as the story talks about, America not being able to compete with other nations who will undermine, as into companies going there to supply employment because they're paying less money. So based on a place like China that has billions of people with a low wage employment, most companies are going to go overseas so that they can make profit. So now you have a person who's going to hold the office who is telling these people that when he gets in, he's going to bring back jobs and he's going to do all these things that is pulling the tug strings for them. So they're galvanizing and they're saying, okay, let's make this country great again, because once we're a part of it, it'll be great again. But again, you understand? There's some things that's happening here. Now, the real reason why I'm talking about this again, I had already done this story originally back almost 3 years ago. But for them to be coming out again and talking about a third and talking primarily of the United States, and that they're saying that the Caucasian race of a third, well, the reason a lot of this is happening is because there's a lot of the white women and white men who are in multiracial relationships. And so those children that are born off of them cannot be considered in the category what they have constructed as a race society, cannot be really deemed as white people. And so because of the browning of America, they're scaring them by telling them that they're dying, when a lot of them have just been, outside of their own race. And that's what's really killing them all. And the fact that they are having problems procreating and producing. So with a combination like that, then these statistics are why they're showing. Okay? Now, the thing is, it says that it was focusing primarily that on this middle age of white men. Between the ages, I think it said of 44 and 54 or something like that. Let me pull that up. Well, let's before I get into that. Now it says that the death rate among Caucasians outstripped the birth in 17 states. Okay? And this was just a New Hampshire had found, the University of New Hampshire had found that. And it says that Latino, blacks, and Asian population continue to grow. Well, when you say that versus these people who are looking, who are less educated and who are not so acting as if they're not privy to information to know, but they're just based on their own, perception of things. When they hear that Latino, Black, and Asian population continue to grow, and that you're telling them that they're dying off and then they're not growing, that's putting them, the rat, in the corner. And he's going to come out swinging and biting and clawing because he got nowhere else to damn go in his belief. So who is benefiting from firing up this nationalist aspect of Caucasians who fall under this paradigm? Because this country is on the verge of something happening, and people are stoking and pushing the buttons and pulling the levers, you understand? Trying to get an outcome. But who wants this outcome is the real, to break the case, that's who you have to figure out who it is. Now, it says that white Americans are reportedly dying faster to a silent epidemic. They're saying silent is because they haven't been forecasting this. If it wasn't for people like myself and others who will touch these stories, because a lot of us is too black to even know where everything else is going, I am too. But I do understand that you sometimes have to be, peripheral vision, meaning seeing everything, right? And so the silent death is not being spoken about, but they're feeling it because they know it. They know that there are people dying from suicides. Men can't deal with the fact that they much better than what they perceive themselves to be better than. They're not really living better than. So they are high users of drugs. I mean, America is only 6% of the world's population, 5 to 6% of the world's population, but it is the biggest consumer of drugs. And we know that the bigger population in our country, and based on these studies and these topics, white people are consuming way more drugs. And they're drinking heavily, trying to deal with, suppress. And when you can't suppress and deal with some of these things, they're going to lash out in full metal gear for war. You understand? So when you look at it like that, you have to say, when people who are considered on the lower scales of society and cannot be participants in the buffers or the upper echelon of society, what avenues do they go into if they want to find employment, when this story talks about the lack of industries for the blue collar, less educated Caucasian? The police have always been an avenue for taking people if you can pass the physical and I guess the aptitude test. The criteria for education is low. So does this not answer where a lot of them have gone into? This is where they facilitated and now use this as a part of a stance, as a brotherhood, to tackle against what they believe is the threat of the Latinos, blacks, and Asians. And I just read a story the other day where they said that the Jews and the Muslims are holding hands as because they feel like they have something in common against some of the hate that is coming towards them. So with all this dynamic happening in this country, it is stirring up the emotions, it is stirring up the anger, it is, heaving up the racism and the hate. And where's it going to end up leading? No one really wants this to take place or to manifest, but someone is constantly stoking this, and with a person at the head, right? The HIC, right? The head, right? The head hunky in charge. And he is the one who's propagating a mind state and has some connections in his background. That is why they're coming out and they're showing their fangs because they are under the belief system that their posterity, which is their children and grandchildren, will either, by some unforeseen occurrences, they think that our people will attack their people and kill their people, or the fact that their bloodline will no longer exist and merge and become something else. And so this is putting them in a stance to fight. This is your why. I've seen a story where a man who was in a grocery store, that police was chasing somebody else. He got in the car and ran supposedly within the vicinity, if not in the establishment. When the police came in there, grabbed him up, slammed him, beat him up. He come to find out he was one of them, but he was retired. And he kept stating that. And then when he did the press conference, the man broke down. He was crying as if like he couldn't understand. I'm one of you guys. No, brother. Your uniform you wear, not the one you put on. It is the one you can't take off. And according to that uniform, that's where the game is played at. And we got to understand that. You can't keep acting as if like your profession is going to override. In some aspects, depending on what level of tier you are in the professional world. But in other aspects of it, that is irrelevant. When they are stacked and they got the numbers, especially in that profession, because that is a frontier. That is part of the defense mechanism on the local level. And by you in there infiltrating, helping them to actually get rid of your own people is really what you're in there to do, is to help keep that line from spilling over into those other communities. And so at times when they get heated and they're starting to feel the pressure of maybe economics is here, it's about economics with them. There's a certain lifestyle that a lot of them want to live and be a part of. And because they fit under the mantra of a Caucasian, they feel they're entitled. And when that don't match up to the way they're living, and then, turning on the TV and seeing people of color who seem to be living, because, our people, some of them who are not, so well in their mind, will flash money, gold, driving cars, and in the mind of somebody who can't understand that a lot of this is just a front job, they build it with anger. You understand? And so when they get in confrontations with you, this is what's in their mind. And they already playing chess with you. When you, like the brother that got out the car they talked about, right? The McKnight brother. In a car accident, people want to make sure people are okay. So sometimes people get out of their vehicles, right? Checking in, everything cool. But somebody playing chess here. They saying, by you coming out of your car and walking up to me, and I already knew that you were black, I got a chance to put a notch on my belt, because I think this is a new criteria amongst some of them. They want to have that. That is the new manhood. How many bodies you call of them? You understand? And so we have to be understanding the systemicness of where this is coming from, and not understand this is no game. This is permeated in the minds. They're having these conversations. They're not doing it openly. Again, they said silent. They're seeing their people die. They're seeing their people suffer. They're seeing their people in depression. And they know where it's coming from. And the only thing they can lash out at that is tangible, that they can see, is you, I, or them. You understand? And so they can't have children due to the simple fact that if they can't supply the economics, why produce? They understand that. And so if they are in a situation where they can't find employment or meager employment, they're not going to produce children, and statistically that's going to end up showing that they're not producing, and then they're having a lot of health issues along with that. Besides this, that is causing them to leave. So they are dealing with a whole lot of shit, man. And these mugs are already, with a bloodline of barbarianism and all they want to do is lash out because that's the only thing they think will make them feel better. So we have to be on guard about a lot of this. See, when they purport stories like this and keep telling you this, and you have a chief and commander who is talking their language, and that has riled them up, and a lot of them are in these frontier organizations acting as officials to mediate crime, you're giving them the opportunity to lash out and hide behind the so-called law. As I did the video before showing you about trial by ordeal or trial by combat, is when you come into confrontation with them, remember those terms. And when this mug feels like you don't know where he's coming from, what kind of day he has, and all this stuff, that's all in play dealing with when you're dealing with us. And they're showing it. So I just wanted to bring this little bit of video out, man. I didn't want to do too long. I'm trying to just put more out and not go too long. But it is what it is, y'all. See, it's again, I'm not telling y'all what I heard. I'm telling you what I know.
We're going to win. And also,
you're not going to win,
Mr.
Richard.
Martin, I want to tell you, you've got to prepare yourself. You've dealt with a bunch of guilt-ridden, silly whites all your life, and we are waking up. We are recognizing who we are, and we see an amazing future.
Richard,
so you better get ready.
I'm going to tell you right now, Richard, here's the deal. 1619, 20-odd Africans arrived, Fort Comfort, Virginia, okay? 1619, 397 years ago. Trust me, we're resilient. We're not going anywhere. And I'm going to tell you right here, and as my frat brother Vertner Woodson Tandy said in 1937, we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will fight on the ice. You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
Well, come on with it, baby. Kick some shit.
You'd rather look good and lose than look bad and win.
Fuck you. See, you don't know shit about me, all right?